Everyone has a favorite beverage. It could be Coke, Pepsi, or dog piss, also known as natural light. But how much is that beverage worth to you? $2 maybe? Well, if you were Russia in the late 1980s, you thought it was worth the military of an entire country. In 1959, President Dwight Eisenhower wanted to show the dirty Soviets how incredible American culture was and how amazing capitalism was. But doesn't capitalism lead to corporate entities creating monopolies and large social inequality? That's right, Timmy, but we're not focusing on that right now. To showcase the supreme American ideology, the government set up the American National Exhibition in Moscow, which was to be attended by Vice President Richard Nixon. Wow, the same Richard Nixon who tried to plant listening devices in the Democratic National Headquarters to get dirt on them? The very same. This event would feature all the great American traditions of the 1950s. These were things people knew as distinctly American, like poodle skirts, drive-in theaters, and horrible racism. Soon after arriving, Nixon and Khrushchev, the secretary of the Communist Party, got into an argument over capitalism versus communism. Much like two teens in a Thunderbird on Makeout Hill, things got hot quick. To calm Khrushchev's hammer and sickle-like rage, Nixon offered the Soviet leader his drink, a delicious cup of ice-cold Pepsi. From that moment on, the Soviet Union was hooked on Pepsi. It wasn't until years later that the people of the Soviet Union wanted to strike a deal that would allow Pepsi product in their country permanently. But, just like how I can't yet spend Bitcoin at Chipotle, the Soviet Union's currency wasn't accepted by all of the world, so Pepsi wouldn't make the deal. But, the Russians had the greatest currency man has ever had. Alcohol. Not that dog piss stuff, the real deal. Russians are known for their consumption of vodka, and this ravenous desire for liquid poison was instilled in every man, woman, and most importantly, child. Since it was so loved in their country, they had enough vodka that they could use it as currency. And Pepsi made the deal. They say 45% of Pepsi's staff got alcohol poisoning that day, but that's not important. Like all good things, the deal eventually came to an end. In the late 1980s, the Pepsi deal was about to expire, and they didn't have enough vodka to cover the cost, since they most likely drank it all. Commies, am I right? So they did what any reasonable country would do in the face of such circumstances. They bought less Pepsi? Fuck no. You know how every country has an entire extra naval fleet lying around? Well, Russia traded their top-of-the-line warships for Pepsi. You heard that right. They traded an entire fleet of ships for Pepsi. To be specific, they traded 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer for around $3 billion worth of Pepsi. Sadly, the Pepsi Corporation did not use this power to create their own territory or give every person in the whole world diabetes. They simply sold the fleet to a Swedish company to be made into scrap. But for a moment, just one moment, Pepsi had the 6th most powerful military in the world. When I have trouble falling asleep, I like to think about what could have been. The world we could be living in now if Pepsi had begun an international crusade. A world with no water, only high fructose corn syrup, caffeine, and tyrannical leadership. A better world. But we're stuck in this shitty one, so I guess we'll have to deal with it. If only there was something to take the edge off.